Hello folks, it is day 4 of a big Hobby Nightmare Rumble week where we go through all the Hobby Nightmares and we try and catch up a little bit to make sure that we can read out all of your Hobby Nightmares in the near future. Please send them in to hobbynightmares@gmail.com, and if you like what I do, please subscribe to the channel. It does help me out, and we are so close to 20,000 subscribers. It was my big target for the first half of the year, and we're nearly there. So if you can help me out, that would be amazing of you. Thank you very much. Let's dive right into the Hobby Nightmares, shall we, with Robin. And he says, "Hey Exile, I only recently found your channel and have been listening through a whole load of nightmares in a few weeks to catch up. Mate, it's going to take a while. We've got a lot of content on our channel. I don't always agree with you, but I don't have to agree to appreciate. So thank you for all that you do." Thank you very much, my friend. That's lost on a lot of people in the comment sections these days, but, you know, it is what it is. A little context. I own a small gaming store in the US and run Warhammer in the store. I do everything I can to make it a pleasant space where people can feel safe and comfortable whilst playing with strangers. I teach painting and facilitate games, and when other players aren't available, I even get to sit down for a little bit of dice rolling fun myself. A few months ago, a couple of young boys, cousins apparently, began coming in for games. Right away, I was just glad that I could provide a place for them to play in. I do the usual rundown questions, you know. Have you played before? Do you feel comfortable with the rules? Do you have any questions before I set you up with other players for games? You know, the usual spiel to get to know your players. I only had a couple of guys available to play at the moment, so I set up a 2v2 game. Then the boys pulled out their armies. Each of them had over 2,000 points. One boy even had 2 different armies. Now, my area is not a rich area, and most of my adult players can't afford a full 1,000 points in one army. They do have. I mean, these guys always have to borrow my pieces to fill out their lists. Sometimes I even get my figures back in one piece. No big deal to glue an arm back on once in a while, if it means people get to play. Good lad, you're a good store owner, my friend. This is probably a good spot for a sip of whatever you're lubricating with these days. I keep hobby sticks on hand for my throat. Honey sticks. Not hobby sticks. I'm gonna market hobby sticks. Good old hobby sticks when your voice gets dry. I keep hobby sticks. I've done it again. I keep honey sticks around for my throat, and highly recommend them. Several gaming weeks later, we had our slightly askew. We had our slightly askew moment from reality. The boys are playing their respective opponents, and the mother, who usually brings them in, is sitting with her sister. I try to at least chat with parents a little when they do come in, to make sure everybody knows that they are welcome. We get to talking about a consignment shop up the road, and I mention that I have reserved a space right behind the Indian statue. There's a life-size statue just inside in the front door that everybody knows, and my table there is right behind it. The sister says, "You mean Native American, right?" Oh no. Oh no. I pause for just a second and think better of my initial comeback. I want everybody to feel comfortable after all. So I just respond with, "Well, the old guy guards my table just fine no matter what you call him." That's a good response. That's a good response. Yeah. The old guy guards my table well no matter what they call him. I like that. That's good. That's good. I see the mother, with whom I usually chat with, nearly choke to hold in a big laugh, and even get a hint of a smile from the sister. She decides to drone on and on about acceptance and terminology, and I let her so she can get it out of her system. But now, I'm not big on labels, and I have a family who identify everywhere on the spectrum somewhere, but in business it pays, literally, to tolerate and listen to people, so I let her vent. I think it was a few weeks before the kids and the usual mum came back in. She comes over to me once I'm away from the group. I was grabbing some terrain from our open rack, to apologise for her sister's diatribe. Apparently, she was hesitant to even come back after being mortally embarrassed by her sister. I tell her not to worry, I'm not that easily offended. I can see her visibly relax. and we share a good laugh about the whole thing. I tell her that she and her sister can come back any time, and she should never be afraid of what anyone may say. They're only words after all. Within an hour, her sister comes in to join her at the tables, waiting for the boys to finish their games. I can only imagine there was a text exchange or something of the sort giving the all clear for her to come in. The biggest plus of the whole thing is that the boys seem completely oblivious to the entire thing. Seriously, these boys are a pleasure to have at the table. Oh, and their painting skills are better than most adults. I have some very high hopes for these boys. That's it for now. Thanks again, good sir. In the meantime, I'll end up recalling other stories. Maybe I'll even remember to write and submit them for you. Robin. Yeah, please do, mate. Please do. That's awesome. You handled that like a pro. If you're in business, unless somebody's being willfully ignorant and offensive and trying to get under people's skin, in business, it's best to just live and let live, right? Your money's the same colour to me, no matter what part of the spectrum you're on. You know, it's fine. In you come. As long as you're not disturbing my customers and you're not putting hateful messages out there and you're not trying to be antagonistic towards people, fine. Whatever. Do what you want to do, you know? Anyway. Chris says, "Hi North, my name is Chris. This isn't really a hobby nightmare, as much as it is an observation of a long-time hobbyist." Okay, I don't mind emails like this, and I will put them in every now and again. But if you guys could, like, keep the hobby nightmares coming in rather than being, you know, questions and things, that'd be great. Anyway, this is fine. I am middle-aged. I discovered the hobby whilst in the military around 1992. The good old rogue trader days. I was introduced to it by my roommate Craig, who grew up near the only Games Workshop store in the USA at that time, I think. Due to my military background, my writing tends to be blunt and direct. I've never been very good at descriptive writing, so please feel free to interject your own thoughts as you read along. No, I won't. Not because you know, I don't like to doctor what's in emails. Okay, that's a slippery slope, and I don't want to go down it. So, whatever you read verbatim, I will read. Whatever you write verbatim, I will read out on the channel. Anyways, I instantly fell in love with 40k and began collecting and painting Eldar. Hey, I like elves. What can I say? I built a list that contained mostly aspect warriors. I loved that they were specialised and each had their own distinctive styles of combat and colour schemes. I learned ink washing and dry brushing very quickly, and I was proud of how my models turned out. Craig and I had loads of fun playing as Space Marines against my Eldar on the floor of our barracks room every chance we got. Over the years, I have spent an obscene amount of money on books and model kits. I spent countless hours reading, assembling, converting, painting and playing. Also, over the years, I underwent a slow and painful disassociation, almost like a divorce, from the wider hobby community. Okay, well this is kind of a nightmare. This is very nightmarish. Okay. Here are some thoughts I have about the hobby. My opinions based upon over 30 years as a Warhammer 40k fan. Alright. It's not Games Workshop. That company hasn't been Games Workshop for many years. If they were truthful about their identity, they would call themselves Books and Models Workshop, because that's what they do. They sell books and they sell models. It's obvious to me that the company's leadership doesn't really care about the games that they produce, or the people who play them. They just want to sell models and books as fast as their studios can push them out. That's where the profits are. Warhammer hobbyists are our own worst enemy. It has been my experience that not only are there very many unsavoury types of people in the hobby, people who don't bathe or groom themselves, people with antisocial personality traits, people who use their expertise in the hobby not only to expand the hobby but instead to increase their own perceived social standing within the hobby community at the expense of others' fun. The number of my encounters with such people greatly outweigh my positive experiences. Okay, this is a hobby nightmare. You know, I know you said it wasn't. This is a real big hobby nightmare. Maybe I've just been really unlucky, but it's been my experience that guy in the hobby is actually most of the community. I've only encountered maybe 3 people in over 30 years of gaming that I actually enjoyed playing with. Dude, you are obscenely unlucky. This might be a large factor into Games Workshop's decision to disallow gaming in their stores. If they have decided to use their retail locations primarily as a hobby recruitment centre, having even one or two of that guys in the store when a new potential hobbyist enters for the first time could be counterproductive to their goal of selling more books and more models. Okay. I can tell you now, you're right on that front. And I'm ashamed to say it, you're right on that front. That is one of the main reasons why that we were told not to allow gaming in your stores. One, that they attract most people that Games Workshop don't want in the store. Time vampires. People are going to sit there and take up all of your time as a manager whilst providing very little monetary input into the store. Do you know what I mean? And yeah. Anyway, the game Warhammer 40,000 isn't actually a game. It's a second career, which requires hours upon hours of your time trying to keep up with the flood of never-ending changes coming from Games Workshop HQ. Again, they are just selling books and models to a horde of addicts. It's quite nefarious when you think about it. The company has taken a beloved IP and turned it into a cash cow. So, I recently moved to a new city. I have a teenage son and a teenage nephew who are both interested in the hobby. I recently took them to a friendly local game store which advertised on the internet that they have an active 40k community. We went on one of the weekly nights where gaming takes place, and upon entry, I was quite taken aback. The establishment was dirty, smelled horrible, and was populated with middle-aged power gamers playing to test their newest tournament meta lists. This is not the environment for a couple of teenage budding hobbyists. After a short time, we left. After leaving, I found out that the boys were as underwhelmed as well as I was. I was feeling pretty dejected, and this is where you might say to me, what should I do, North? This is where you might expect me to say, what should I do, North? Well, I've always been the type that doesn't present problems without first offering solutions, and I've decided that I'm going to teach the boys myself. Good lad. I'm going to teach them the lore. I'm going to teach them how to learn about what each faction is and does. I'm going to teach them how to hunt for models on the internet to get around funneling more cash directly into Games Workshop's already swelling coffers. I'm going to teach them how to prepare, build, convert, and paint those models in a way that they think looks cool. I'm going to teach them the current rules, but also that there are other rule sets out there that they can use if they want to, and that it's perfectly okay to make up their own rules on the fly for their games as long as all parties agree beforehand that they're going to be fun and balanced. I'm going to teach them how to craft a narrative, play a campaign, and hopefully they will grow to love Warhammer 40,000 universes as much as I do. In short, I'm going to grow a 40k community right here within my own family and do it in such a way that we all, as well as everybody else who comes in to join our small circle, always has fun and great memories to make within the hobby. Thanks for having time to read my story. I appreciate your efforts, and hopefully my story inspires somebody out there to keep at it and not abandon their love for our hobby because of other people who may be frequenting it. Cheers, Chris. Dude, that was amazing. And it was a hobby nightmare too, so don't put yourself down. Okay, I will say, I think your view of the hobby is quite harsh, but I do know for a fact that there are certain areas within the United States and the UK where being into the hobby means you're going to be coming up against more and more competitive people and more people who perhaps aren't into the narrative side like you are. You know, the hobby will always attract broken people, but I think that's a strength, not a weakness. I think that's something that is incredibly good for our hobby as a whole, to attract the people who are going to be mended by it, who are going to add something to it by realising that, hey, this hobby is doing a lot of good stuff for me, and so I'm going to stay in it and make it better. That for me is more important than having this, you know, place of sunshine and rainbows where everybody's a normie and everybody's fine, you know? Having colourful characters about the place is good. People with autism, people with, you know, depression, people who may cross-dress, people who may, you know, be really into Black Templars. do you know what I mean? Like, there's a whole smorgasbord of people out there who are in the hobby, and they should be here too. I'm not saying that you're saying that they shouldn't be here, but I think what you're getting at is that there are very few normies around your area, and that may be the thing, that may be true. But I can't agree with your assessment of the hobby as a whole, mainly because I think I've had a lot more experience with it than you in terms of exposure, right? You've been in the hobby for 30 years, that's fine. Okay, that's great, no problem. But in terms of exposure to hobbyists, I think I've had more exposure because, I've worked for the company. I've worked for, 2 gaming stores where I've been either running it as a manager or a staff member there full time. I've been to countless game nights and countless events with 40k, right? I think I've got a good handle on what the overall people in the hobby are like. And I think your representation of them there, how do I put it? It's kind of harsh, I've got to say, it is kind of harsh, and I don't know. I just think you've gone a bit overboard on the way that you think that everybody in the hobby is kind of a one-set person who is there to ruin your fun. Those people exist, and I've said this in Hobby Nightmares a lot. Those people exist. They're out there. That's why we have a show called Hobby Nightmares. But never, ever, ever fool yourself into thinking that most of the people in the hobby are like that. They're not. Most people in the hobby are perfectly fine, normal, average, nice guys who want to roll some dice with you and have a good time. That's all. And that's what I've come across. I would say a good 70 to 80% of the people in the hobby are normal. And of the ones who aren't normal, a good 90% of those people are good people. That means that, to me, around 95% of people in the hobby are good, normal people. That's to me. Even if they're a bit odd, they're still good people who are going to have a good game with you. The fact of the matter is, I find that we have Hobby Nightmares here is a fine thing, it's okay. But compared to other hobbies like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering and tabletop role-playing, I'm the only 40k Hobby Nightmare channel. Right? Do you know why that is? It's not because I had an amazing idea, it's because there aren't that many Hobby Nightmares to go around. So if somebody else came along and did the same channel, they'd be covering most of the same stories I'm covering. I don't need to troll Reddit, I get people sending them in to me, Whereas in the D&D sphere, we have several amazing channels like Crit Crab and Drake, right? Who do D&D style nightmares. They do very similar stuff, and they're much bigger channels than mine with much higher value in terms of the content that they put out there. But they have so much content to go through because their hobbies are just as big as 40k, but the toxicity that I see in those hobbies they far outstrip 40k. Far outstrip it. This is why I think I'm the only Hobby Nightmares channel. I thought there'd be another one by now. I literally did. I thought that there'd be another one right by now, and it would blow me out the water because it'd be from some professional YouTuber who knows what they're doing better than me, and isn't a verbal retard like I am. And I thought they'd come out and blow me out the water, and that'd be the end of my YouTube career. But no, here I am, still churning out Hobby Nightmares because there's only so much to go around because our hobby's so fucking amazing. Like, the people in it are so cool, right? Yes, we have our problem people, but every hobby does. I think, Chris, I honestly, mate, I think you've got a bad situation there. You've got a bad area, and you've addressed it in the proper way. You've said, no, do you know what? I'm going to water the grass where I am, and I'm going to grow myself a really good hobby space for the people around me. You've done exactly the right thing. Congratulations to you, all right? Fantastic stuff. Anyway, Raven says, hello, Sir North of the 4x4 table. Please refer to me as Raven. My Hobby Nightmare is based on what feels like a lifetime experience within the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game. For purposes that will be obvious throughout the nightmare, there will be trigger warnings throughout. Okay, here we go. This is based more towards the opinion of those around me, primarily my parents, and how they viewed my hobby, as well as how addiction comes in many forms, as I'll explain further on. Also, please feel free to take a sip of tea whenever you feel like it. Okay, thank you. For a bit of background, growing up with my father was heavily into anime, WWE, then WWF at the time, and he was a very talented artist, and growing up, he was an excellent role model. Although, he was not around as much as I would have liked him to be due to my toxic mother. My father and mother split up when I was around 7 years old, and I was at the age where I was somewhat aware of what was going on, but not entirely. But it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that my father was no longer around. Me and my younger brother fought tooth and nail to see him. But when my mother met my stepdad, everything changed, and not for the best. I used Yu-Gi-Oh! As my outlet. I was too young to really understand how the game worked, but when my father was around, we used to watch the anime together, so every time I looked at the cards, I just saw my old man smiling back at me. Fast forward to age 14, my family moved to a new town closer to my stepdad's family, and let me tell you mate, they weren't family to me. Over the years prior to the fast forward, trigger warning. Okay, trigger warning for those of you who don't want to hear about abuse of any kind. Alright, before I carry on. My stepdad used to hit me and my brother on a daily basis. He would take our cards and rip them up in front of us, and tell us that it was a complete waste of time. And he'd always insult my dad, who was at the time had no idea where we were, using insults such as, you know, and I quote, gay card games, unquote. Now, you might think my mother had something to say about this, but of course, she actually encouraged him. My mother had a knack for manipulating people, and a prime example of that was my younger sister. She convinced my sister that our dad didn't want to know her, and actively encouraged my sister to steal mine and my brother's things, and, with my stepdad and mum preventing us from stopping her, she'd ripped them up in front of us. Oh my god, dude. Dude. How much detail do I go into here? So you know you're not alone, right? My ex sounds like your mother. Alright? In fact, somebody who's into anime, as in, like, well, I'm only into Berserk, I'm not into most anime, but I am into WWF, or WWE, and I'm somewhat of an artist. I can paint things and do things. I'm not your dad, am I? No, it's just, I joke. I'm not your dad, right? Yeah, I'm not your dad. Just thought I'd get that out there before we get in some legal trouble. Anyway, as Dr. Disrespect says, I'm not your daddy, alright? Look in the mirror, look at your jawline, then look at mine. Yeah, I'm not your daddy. I've always loved that put down, it's really funny. Anyway, I don't mean it, I'm taking the piss. Anyway, at this time, being in secondary school, my stepdad and mother barely let me shower. And at the time, I was a full-on emo kid. Black long hair, the full shebang. Dude, that's horrible. Why didn't they let you shower? What? All my friends used to defend me from the relentless bullying that I would get. And they'd lend me their cards, which further gave me the motivation to continue with the hobby, despite being berated for it. It felt like I was holding a piece of my memory in my hand every time I held the cards. A quick side note, but never let anybody tell you that you can't do a hobby just because they don't see any value in it. You put the value in what you love, and a lot of people overlook that. Anyway, from the age of 14 to 17, the abuse only became worse. Even in 6th form. For those of you who don't know, 6th form in England is like a finishing school before you go into university. Alright? Cool. I still have to ask my parents if I was allowed to shower, and I was very rarely allowed to see my friends, who had mostly gone to other 6th forms and colleges. I felt like I was at rock bottom, with the only thing keeping me together being my cards that I hid in the shed and in the garden. So this finally brings me to the nightmare, which I still replay in my mind daily. Dude, this wasn't the nightmare already? Oh my god. I feel I need, as this is North talking, I feel I need to give you a trigger warning, even though I don't know what's going to happen, alright? Just in case you're already having a bad day and you want it to get worse, alright? Let's dive in together, we're all safe here. You're safe in my lovely supple hands, alright? Good, let's get in there. It was the summer of 2012, and hiding my cards in the shed seemed to be working like a charm. Me being a rebellious teen, I thought that none of my siblings, by this time there were 6 of us in total, yes, my mum and stepdad had a TV, or my parents had noticed me going in and out to the shed, but boy was I wrong. I came home from another average day at sixth form, in which I was only in for one lesson in the morning, so I left my cards at home. The police were waiting on our driveway. 2 large officers, and as you can imagine, I was a bit bewildered. My mum greeted me with a, "You think we wouldn't notice you hiding weed in the shed, you devious little prick?" My heart sank, as the shorter of the two officers asked me, "So what are you hiding, son?" So I assumed that they hadn't searched the shed. "Nothing," I said loudly. In that time, they marched me to the back garden, family in tow, as the officers burst into the shed and looked around. Of course, they found nothing, other than a sandwich zip bag full of heavily played with Yu-Gi-Oh cards. As you can imagine, I was only 16 at the time, but I was looking for any reason to leave, so I did. I packed my things and left abruptly and never looked back. I felt bad for leaving my younger brother to fend for himself, but he informs me to this day that the relentless beatings and belittling comments became very rare after I left. Okay, that's good. Remember, folks, just because family are blood, it doesn't always mean they're what's best for you. Dude, that's such a powerful statement. I'm so grateful that me and my mum were able to work out our differences over the years. Because me and my mum, this is North talking, we set each other off like bad style, right? And there was a few times when I was living at home where, you know, the girl I was with at the time would say, "Listen, do they talk to you like that all the time? That's not really nice, you know." I've noticed that they talk to you in a way that they don't speak to their other family members, and it's not very nice. But since I've left and got my own place and got my own life in order, we're now getting along like a house on fire. But I get what you mean. I needed to leave for a while and step out of their lives for a while and get out of there. Just because they're blood doesn't mean that's what's best for you right now. That's a really powerful sentiment and something that you should all take to heart, right? Because not only can you get out of a toxic situation, but sometimes you can get your family back. If you get out of there and you get the fuck out of there and you build your own life, you may find that your family becomes an intrinsic part of your life in a good way, rather than a toxic way. Sometimes being up in each other's business all the time isn't what's best, you know? Anyway, fast forward to now, and I'm going to be 28 years old this year, with a fiance, a daughter, and my own flat and a great job. My stepdad and mum divorced and separated in 2020. To my delight, and both of them tried talking to me for comfort, in which they were met with the same hostility that they gave me for years. As for Yu-Gi-Oh, I play casually once a year or so with my younger brother, but my balls are dropped by this point, so I switched to Warhammer like a real man. You're just having a go at your own hobby. You've been so into Yu-Gi-Oh this entire time, and now you're just like, fuck that, it's for kids. Oh. But my balls are dropped by this point, so I switched to Warhammer like a real man. I agree with you, but, you know, you just said, don't let anyone belittle your hobby, and here it goes. No, I'm taking the piss. I know that's not what you mean, you know. With a love for Adeptus Custodes and the Stormcast Eternals. A picture is attached. It is there, mate, but I'm on a different computer, so I'll have to do it next time. And I regularly see my biological father, and our relationship is so strong, it feels like he was never forced out by my mother, and he loves his granddaughter very, very much. Thank you for reading my lengthy hobby nightmare, and I hope you've been able to keep up with it and make sense of it. Thank you for all the hard work you do. Kind regards, Raven. Thank you very much, mate. That was awesome. What a lovely hobby nightmare. I love that. That was brilliant. If you want to send me more in, it's hobbynightmares@gmail.com down at the doobly-doo below. I'll be back tomorrow with some more hobby nightmares, your last one for this week, to get you through the week. I love you all long time. Stay with me, folks. I'll be here tomorrow. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.